Hello everyone and welcome back to Rhythm Railroad. This is my layout update, my first one ever. Um, I've been doing it in parts because there's a lot to speak about. In the last 2 years I've been doing a lot of work, and so I wanted to make sure that I can get it all in and talk about each section accordingly. But it's a lot to talk about, so it would take about an hour or two to get through everything if I did just put it into one video. So this is part 5. If you haven't seen part 1 through 4, basically what I spoke about was the general concept of my layout, how it's set up, all the equipment I used, and so on and so forth. And then I started taking you through this area here, which is where the laptop is. The laptop is actually placed right there. I spoke about that area, the coal area, the closet, basically pass through, the pull-out bridge or lift-out bridge with the scenery in front, the fact that my train goes through the shower, and just watch the other video so you can see what that's all about. And basically the last part was all about the yard. And this is my yard. I've done most of the work on the yard already, as far as scenery and everything that's involved, weathering the tracks. You know, there's still some work to do. I have to put the ground cover here and the ballasting and all that stuff, but I have all of the moving parts of the yard and working, and everything's wired up correctly and so on and so forth. And I think it's looking pretty good. The last element was this backdrop photo. I had to cut this out because there's a window here. So this is actually, I can pull this out. And I'm just going to paint this a little bit better because it ended up creating a crease there. But you could, without that, it looks pretty good. Good enough for me. The only thing is that it bubbled up a little bit right there and right there. I'm not sure why just there and not anywhere else, but I'll either mask it with trees or get rid of it somehow. I'm not worried about it. And I made a little village, a little quiet road here in the back. This guy's house has a nice like parking area there, but he's very close to the track, so that must really stink when the train goes by. And then that guy's a little bit better situated. He's cutting down a tree, I guess a tree stump back there, and there's a car going by. And I thought this came out pretty cool. I like the way the background blends in with the super trees. I thought that came out quite nice. I'm happy with that. And I like how the road looks like it's freshly paved. Like upstate roads or Pennsylvania roads. They're very dark when you first see them because they use oil in their asphalt. So I like the way that came out. There's no lines on it because it's freshly paved. They haven't gotten to that yet. And generally speaking, as the train comes by, it's like a nice thing to see in the background, and I'm excited about that. So that was part 4. Now let me get to part 5 before I keep yapping about that whole thing. As the yard ends here, this is the short line that I was discussing before. It's not supposed to be a high-speed main line like these ones on top. These are supposed to be the high-speed ones. So as this exits here, the idea is that the short line is this reverse loop here that goes in the opposite direction in case you want to turn the trains around. But if you do choose to go straight, it becomes the connecting point to the main lines, which are basically right there. These are the 2 main lines. Now, if you want to get from here to this main line, there are crossovers on the other side of the backdrop here that allow you to do that. And they're basically in both directions, and you can cross over all 3 tracks in either direction. So there's endless possibilities back there. And what I really wanted to talk about is this area here. Obviously I finished all the background stuff there as far as ground cover, but I still have to put trees and maybe even a photo backdrop back there at some point. when I first got into model railroading, not with this layout, but with my previous layouts, I kind of fell in love with the whole Southern Railways system. And I didn't know anything about the system itself. I just knew that I liked the way the engines looked. And if you look at my fleet over here, a lot of my engines, these are my original engines, are Southern. And over here also. But what ended up happening is that I started to get more interested in those guys, Norfolk Southern. And in order, you know, according to history, in order to run those, you had to run more modern times. But what I was getting to before is that I wanted to get a feel of what the Southern Railroad was all about. And one thing that I fell in love with was the Saluda grade, that whole thing with the town of Saluda and how it got up to, you know, it was like the steepest climb, steepest grade to the top of, you know, of the town. And that's what I went with originally. So I actually started building this around that concept. This whole layout was around the Saluda concept, but then I changed my mind, like most people do when they're building layouts, and decided to make it a regular town because I found myself getting stuck in one thing and then I didn't have any options, and I like options. So if you look at a satellite picture of Saluda, it basically looks like this. So I try to imitate it as much as possible and replicate what the layout is of that town. It's a very small, basic town, but basically what happens is the train has a double main line, which is now not in use, well, it hasn't been in use for years, but when it was in use, the double main line crested at the town of Saluda. So it would come up this way, it would go under this bridge, which was on this angle, same look, if you look at the satellite pictures. And there was a quiet road on this side, and then a more busy road on that side. That's why I have the double yellow lines there. It had a, you know, the cement, or rather the concrete pier holding the bridge up, just like that. That electrical box I added by myself. That's just something I wanted to put there. But I tried to put, you know, there's like a tree there in the original picture. I tried to, you know, do as much as I could to make it look like the pictures I saw of Saluda. I added a house here, even though there were like more houses on this area, but I obviously didn't have the room, so I just wanted to show that there's a little neighborhood here with the road right by the houses. And then as the streets came down, you came into the main town, you know, the main road of the town. I think it's even called Main Road or Main Street. And this street was also a part of Saluda. It came into, I guess, the shopping area. And then there was, you know, the road did not line up with that road or this road. It's just like this. I think this is called Church Street, and that's, I don't remember, but those are basically the only, that from that road to this road is what I wanted to model. And so I think I got it pretty close. The parking spaces are in this direction. You know, like, I mean, a lot of typical small towns are like that anyway, but in the Saluda pictures that I've seen, there even is a little bit of a courtyard there. That's why I pushed this building back like that. I don't think they have any 3-story buildings there, but this is your typical Walters kit, so I just went with that. And I added these are like the cheap pre-built, you know, buildings, but you know, I think they look okay. I'll probably make those a little bit more detailed, and or even replace them with something better. But the only tricky part was the buildings that were on this side in the photos, you know, along the hill. I'm not sure how I'm gonna get around that. Maybe just pictures or something to make it look like it's climbing up the hill, but you know, still part of the buildings. So moving on, I have my crossing gates here. The original town of Saluda did not have crossing gates. They had the signals with the lights and everything, but no gates. But I like gates, so it's my layout. I'm gonna do what I want, and that's what I wanted. So the gates are operated by a system called Trax, and I'm really happy with the system. There was a few out there, but I really like this one because it seemed to be very much plug and play. I like the infrared option. Uh, Even though you can connect it with track detection also, but the infrared was a big thing for me because I didn't have to mess with cutting the track or anything like that. Just to get all the, and plus it's more wiring and all that nonsense. So the infrared basically is located. They give you 4 sets of sensors, and one set is actually here. If you can see it, then good for you. But it's basically hiding. One's in here. You see it there, and one is across the way right there. The yellow bulb right there. So basically, when that gets interrupted, let me just do it. When that gets interrupted by the train, you get the gates moving. And I love that they go super slow like that. That front gate, the wire is messed up, but the back gate is how it works. And with one as a tracks module, you could do 4 gates. So I have 2 more gates here, which I'll get to later. But I also like that the LEDs have a little bit of a delay on it, so it looks more realistic. Instead of having like a quick switch, there's a little bit of a dim as it switches from left to right. And I thought that was a really cool thing. It makes it look very realistic, and I love that speed of the gates coming up. This is being controlled with servos. You can also use a tortoise machine, but the servos, I'm a big fan of servos. I use them for turnouts, I use them for opening building gates and things like that. I use them for whatever I can. So I decided to go with that option, and I really like it. Train's coming through, so I'm just going to leave you with that before I wrap this up. But this is basically the town of Saluda, and very exciting that it came out as good as it did. All right, I will see you in the next part.